Do you believe that even a deserted road can turn into a stage of justice? It looks like a scene from a movie, but this is exactly what happened on a not very busy road, where nature decided to act surprisingly and unexpectedly. Imagine a driver, quiet, on his way, when suddenly his routine is interrupted by a situation that seems out of a script of action. A criminal, determined to commit a robbery, tries to conquer a car that is there waiting for him like any other. The scene seems ordinary, until what happens next reveals a surprise that no one could have predicted. Have you ever been through something like this? These stories, which seem impossible, show that even in the simplest and quietest moments, nature and chance can conspire in favor of those who least expect it. What makes this story even more intriguing is the fact that as the thief tries to force through the vehicle's glass, the scene quickly turns into something else entirely. In a few seconds, what seemed to be an action of vandalism or ordinary crime becomes a real battle against nature. A seemingly trivial detail, such as pulling over a fallen log, eventually becomes the turning point in the story. And the most striking thing is that the unexpected answer came in the form of angry marimbondos who were hiding in an abandoned nest near the trunk. Have you ever heard of such natural justice? That instant of distraction from the criminal was enough for a swarm of marimbondos to spring into action, turning the scene into a real mess of stings and chaos. It's hard to imagine a more surreal situation, but this story shows us that sometimes nature has a unique way of putting things in their proper place. Stay with me until the end, because what you will discover now may surprise you. How a simple deserted road became the scene of an unexpected justice, where the criminal's own life was put at risk by a reaction of nature itself. You'll see that the universe often conspires in ways we could never have imagined, and that the answer to a malicious action may be hidden in the most unexpected details. This story serves as a reminder that life has its own ways of balancing things even in the most unusual moments. And the most striking thing, it all happened on a forgotten road, far from the eyes, where justice was done in a way that no one could have predicted. With this, what comes next promises even more surprising revelations, so continue with me to understand the entire sequence of this unusual adventure. If this story surprised you or made you reflect on how nature can act in unexpected ways, leave here in the comments what touched you the most, or what was your reaction to hearing about this unusual situation. Your opinion is very important, as it helps create a true connection between all of us and strengthens this community of those who enjoy stories that show the most amazing side of life. Also, if you liked what you heard so far, don't forget to like the video so we help spread these amazing stories to more people who also appreciate these moments of natural justice and connection with the world around us. If you want to continue following this type of content, subscribe to the channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue bringing stories that show the power of nature, hope, and the unexpected, always in a light, engaging, and full of emotions. Each comment, each like, and each subscription contributes to this space growing and reaching more people, bringing messages of reflection, surprise, and connection with the natural world. So, here is the invitation for you to continue with us on this journey of discoveries and stories that often seem even from another world, but that have everything to do with our life and our day-to-day. Your presence makes all the difference, and we are together in this adventure to unravel the mysteries and surprises of life. It was night, and the road seemed to stretch as far as the eye could see, almost empty, shrouded in a stillness that seemed to stretch into infinity. The silence was almost absolute, broken only by the distant sound of a light breeze that stirred the trees around. Against this backdrop of isolation, the feeling of loneliness was palpable, as if the world had forgotten that particular stretch of road. A car stopped there for a few moments, with the lights out, just forming a point of light in the middle of the vast darkness. Inside, a driver decided to take advantage of that moment of calm to rest, turned off the engine, turned off the interior lights, and closed his eyes for a moment, thinking that there was a temporary refuge, a space of peace away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. However, this tranquility, which seemed so lasting, would soon be interrupted by a situation that would change everything in a surprising way. It was exactly at that instant that an individual, clearly seeking something illicit, quietly approached the car. His steps were hesitant, almost as if he were trying not to make a sound, but the tension in his posture betrayed a not good intention. Intending to steal the vehicle, he approached carefully, trying to force the glass with an improvised tool. The scene even seemed surreal, as if it were an attempted invasion that could go unnoticed most of the time. But at that moment, everything seemed charged with a dense energy, an expectation that made the heart beat faster. The criminal, with an almost blind determination, tried several times to open the glass, hitting him hard, in an attempt to break the glass and get into the car. The atmosphere became more and more charged with a sense of danger, while the silence was broken only by the sound of his effort. Each attempt seemed more desperate until suddenly, something unexpected happened. In that environment of solitude, a presence that no one could have predicted suddenly appeared. A seemingly insignificant obstacle, a fallen log on the side of the road, turned out to be the decisive element of that moment. By touching him in an attempt to force entry, the criminal activated a natural trap, hidden under dry leaves and dead branches. It was a nest of marimbondos, which until then remained silent and hidden in the darkness. The reaction was instantaneous. It was enough that the stings began to hit the criminal so that he abandoned the attempted robbery with impressive speed. His cries of pain echoed through the night as he tried to walk away, desperate, looking for a shelter that did not exist. The scene quickly turned into a mess of incessant stinging, a real storm of pain and panic. That moment of vulnerability showed that even in the solitude of the most deserted road, nature has its own way of doing justice. What seemed like a simple invasion has become an unexpected lesson, that often the impact of our actions can come from where we least expect it. The driver, who had hitherto remained motionless, stood there watching the scene with a mixture of relief and surprise. Taking advantage of the chaos created by the marimbondos, he quickly got out of the car, trying to remain calm as he saw the thief run desperately along the road, covered with red and inflamed stings. The night, which had previously been silent and mysterious, now seemed charged with an invisible impact, as if nature itself had decided to intervene quietly but definitively. That moment of tension, which seemed to be a simple risk of assault, turned into a real lesson that even the most unlikely of elements can act as a natural vigilante, showing that the life force, in its purest essence, has its own ways of balancing things. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, exploring how this connection between the natural world, our decisions, and the impact we make on the environment can shape our lives in ways we can't even imagine. This story, as simple as it sounds, reveals a hidden truth about the power of transformation, about the moment when our actions find their own reflection in the journey we are on. Every decision, no matter how small, carries a weight that often only reveals itself when we least expect it, and the consequences can come from where we least imagine. The lesson here is clear. The universe has a way of showing us that true justice lies not only in law or human actions, but also in the silent force of nature, which acts precisely even in the darkest or most helpless moments. And while this reflection deepens, the question remains about how many other similar stories are hidden out there, in every detail of our routine. How often do we miss signs that the impact of our decisions echoes beyond what we can see? These questions are part of a journey of discovery, where understanding that the natural world is a powerful ally in our transformation is key. It is in this context that we realize that many times the hidden truth is precisely in the little things, in the details that we ignore or underestimate, and that can be the differential between chaos and harmony. The connection between our choices and life force, which manifests in surprising ways, reveals that the impact of an action can transform into the very justice we seek, in a way that only nature knows and dominates. He said, "That makes sense to me." Suddenly, in the gloom of that silent night, a figure appeared out of nowhere that seemed to emerge directly from the dark. The driver's eyes, which until then had been fixed on the road, widened as he noticed that silhouette rapidly approaching. He was a man of medium height with firm and determined steps, who advanced with a posture that conveyed aggressiveness and impatience. Every move seemed charged with a clear intention. That person was in a hurry, and his gaze fixed in the direction of the car indicated that he had no good intentions. The atmosphere, which was already tense from the risk of robbery, became even more charged with a sense of imminent danger. The dim moonlight barely illuminated the scene, but the determined expression on that man's face showed that he did not intend to back down or hesitate. His presence felt like a real, palpable threat, as if it were a force rising from the shadows to turn that moment of vulnerability into something even scarier. His attitude was that of the one who believed that he was in control of the situation, that at any moment he could achieve his goal. With quick steps, he approached the vehicle, intending to force the door or break the glass, all in the hope of achieving what he wanted without resistance. The car's engine was still off. The silence of the night seemed to amplify every sound of that unexpected encounter. The criminal's eyes shone with a mixture of determination and impatience, like someone who had already planned that action for some time, and now saw his moment of success ahead of him. It was as if the universe was conspiring for that scene to be completed quickly and without hindrance. Adrenaline was beginning to rise, and the driver's heart was racing as he realized the degree of threat that was approaching more and more. However, in that instant of extreme danger, what seemed to be a simple invasion turned into something that no one could foresee. The scene carried an energy of tension, where every second seemed like an eternity. The criminal, with his aggressive posture, approached the glass of the car with a tool in his hand, while the driver tried to remain calm, even with fear growing. The sense of risk increased with every movement, with every sound of hurried steps. And it was precisely at this moment of maximum vulnerability that something strange happened. A sudden, brief noise cut through the air as a sign that the universe had decided to intervene in a totally unexpected way. A sound that, no matter how simple it was, carried a silent force, an energy of transformation that would change everything from there on. The presence of that man, who had seemed so confident minutes before, began to falter in the face of what was to come next. He had no way of foreseeing that when he touched a fallen log, a natural trap would instantly activate. The action of that criminal, who seemed so determined to take advantage, was interrupted by a barrage of stings that came from a nest of marimbondos hidden under the dry branches. The reaction was swift and cruel, a true demonstration that nature, in her silent wisdom, possesses a strength we often do not know. The man, who until then seemed unbeatable, turned into a desperate figure trying to pull away as pain and stings spread throughout his body. Each sting was a direct rebuke, a reminder that human actions have consequences, often invisible, but which manifest themselves in a forceful way when they are least expected. The climate of threat turned into complete chaos. The criminal, his face contracted with pain, tried to run, but the incessant stings did not let him escape so easily. The scene seemed to have come out of a thriller where nature manifests itself as a silent judge, punishing those who try to disrespect her laws. Fear gripped him at that instant, and his aggressive stance gave way to despair. Every step he took was accompanied by a pain that did not cease, as he desperately sought a way out of that hell of stings. It was as if all his strength, his arrogance, and his determination had been consumed by a greater force, which could not be controlled or foreseen. Thus the scene unfolded, making it clear that justice often comes in ways we never imagined, and that the very essence of life is a delicate balance between good and evil, between action and reaction. While all this was happening, the driver, who until then had remained frightened, began to realize the true dimension of what he had just witnessed. That moment of extreme danger, which seemed like a simple attempted robbery, revealed a powerful lesson about the unpredictability of life and the impact of our actions. As an invisible force, nature has shown that there are limits to everything, that the universe has its own balancing mechanisms, and that often justice does not need human intervention to manifest. This experience, which seemed to be an isolated episode, actually becomes a metaphor for our journey of transformation. Every decision we make, every step we take, carries a consequence that can unfold in surprising ways, often at a time when we least expect it. And it is precisely in this context that we realize that the true strength lies in our ability to recognize what is invisible to the eye, but which has a profound impact on our history, our evolution, and the connection we have with the world around us. And so, while the dust of confusion settles, there is the reflection that life is a constant exchange of energies, where every action reverberates in one way or another, often subtly, but always with impact. That episode on the road serves as a reminder that transformation, no matter how quiet or unexpected, always finds its moment to manifest. And that, even in the face of danger, there are forces that work to restore balance, reinforcing that true justice is often hidden in the simplest but deepest details of everything that happens around us. Thus, the story of that man, of the criminal who tried to steal a car in the dark, turns into a lesson that life is an eternal journey of discovery, where behind the scenes often reveal revelations that change everything. Each of these experiences leaves an imprint, a lesson that can transform our mentality and help us understand that deep down, everything is part of a great learning cycle, where the hidden truth is often what really makes us evolve. The silence of the night was interrupted by a sharp sound, almost of metal against glass, as the criminal tried with desperate effort to force the window of the car using an improvised tool. It was a quick, almost automatic attempt to achieve what he wanted, without realizing that each movement carried a tension that seemed to spread through the air. The driver inside felt his heart accelerate, his body break for a moment of paralysis before that scene of vulnerability. His thoughts swirled in a whirlwind, trying to find a way out, a strategy, anything that could stop that invasion. The feeling of helplessness was almost unbearable, as if he were there, trapped inside a trap, not sure what would come next. Each effort of the thief made the glass shake, while the noise of the tool banging against the reinforced material sounded like a symphony of impending danger, a soundtrack of a real threat that could come true at any moment. However, something seemed to hang in the air, a kind of expectation that went beyond the obvious. And just at that moment, when everything seemed about to resolve in a tragic way, an invisible force that no one could foresee began to act. The bandit, who until then had been so confident, was taken by surprise by a twist that would change everything radically. The criminal's action, which seemed almost routine, was interrupted by a presence that came from where it was least expected. A strange sound, almost like a whisper, turned into a deafening noise as a barrage of stings took over the scene. The impact came from a nest of marimbondos hidden under the dry branches, a natural trap that activated at the most critical moment. This was not just an insect attack, but a manifestation of the very essence of nature's justice, which often manifests itself in quiet but unforgiving ways. The criminal, who until then had seemed so determined and strong, found himself completely overwhelmed by a barrage of stings that attacked his hands, face, and arms. His cries of pain echoed through the night as he tried to flee, desperate, not understanding what had happened. Each sting felt like a direct punishment, a warning that human arrogance often ignores the limits that life itself imposes. It was as if the life force itself was saying that there are times when arrogance and irresponsibility lead to collapse, and that the hope of escaping the impact of our decisions often lies in the very unpredictability of the universe. In that instant, the scene turned into a real war of survival, where pain and fear mixed in a mixture of chaos and reflection. Behind that scene of confusion, the driver stood there motionless, watching everything with a mixture of surprise and relief. That moment of maximum danger revealed the harsh lesson that nature, with its silent strength, can act as an impartial judge, punishing actions that defy its laws. What appeared to be a simple attempt at theft turned into a living example that the impact of human decisions can come from where they are least expected, and that often the universe uses its natural wisdom to restore balance. That criminal's every move, every attempted break-in was a piece of a puzzle that, as it fell into place, revealed a hidden truth. That true transformation often only happens when we are faced with our own vulnerability. That instant of chaos, pain, and surprise showed that life in its trajectory always reserves a lesson that can come from someone or something considered minor or insignificant. From that moment on, what seemed like a trivial action, a simple attempted theft, became a demonstration that the impact of our choices reverberates in the stories we write. The force of nature often acts as a mirror that reflects our attitudes, making us question how in tune we are with the world around us. That episode on the road, marked by the unexpected attack of the marimbondos, reinforces the idea that true justice depends not only on human laws, but also on the very essence of life, which always finds a way to balance the maladjustments and restore what has been disturbed. And as the scene unfolds, it's clear that the journey of transformation involves recognizing that the impact of our actions can come from where we least imagine, and that the hidden truth often lies in the simplicity of a detail, in the quiet force of a movement that suddenly changes everything. Now, as the dust of confusion begins to settle, it's inevitable to think about How these moments of impact reveal the deeper layers of our existence. These revelations, often hidden behind the scenes of routine, show us that life is made up of choices and consequences that are intertwined in an invisible web. Every decision we make shapes our path, and often, the universe uses its natural wisdom to teach us that the impact of our actions can trigger reactions we can't even imagine. Just as that criminal was taken by surprise by the marimbondos, we can also come across moments of transformation that make us reflect on our own journey. Because deep down, life is a constant exchange of energies, of revelations that push us to evolve, to understand that true strength lies in the connection we have with the world, with the actions we practice, and with the wisdom we acquire along the way. And when you think about it all, you get the feeling that the story of that night on the road is far from being a simple narrative of a thwarted robbery. It is a powerful metaphor about the impact of our decisions, about the revelations that come from where we least expect them, and about the role nature plays in our transformation trajectory. Every detail, every reaction, every surprise reveals that the universe has its own balancing mechanisms, which often act quietly, but extremely effectively. The life force, with its natural wisdom, shows us that true justice is the one that comes from within, that manifests itself in the most unexpected moments, and that challenges us to see beyond appearances. Thus, the journey of self-knowledge and connection with the world around us becomes a constant search to understand these invisible backstage, to decipher the revelations that shape who we are and who we can become before the greatness of life. In the heat of the action, while the criminal focused on his attempted break-in, his movements became more aggressive, impulsive. Haste and anxiety seemed to tame his reasoning, prompting him to act on impulse, without thinking about the consequences of each step. When trying to force a window, the criminal leaned hard against a fallen log on the side of the road, a seemingly harmless element on that silent night. However, what he didn't know was that that trunk was hiding something that would completely change the course of the situation. Inside that dead tree rested a huge nest of marimbondos, prepared to defend their territory at any moment. Like a natural trap, that nest was there, silent, waiting for the right moment to act. And just at the moment when the criminal touched the trunk, the action was triggered instantly, as a reaction of defense of wildlife itself. The impact of that sting was immediate and devastating. The marimbondos, which until then had remained protected under the dried bark of the trunk, came out in a flurry of painful wounds for those who were nearby. The criminal, who thought himself so prepared, was taken by surprise by a force he could not control. The pain was instantaneous, intense, and his reaction was one of dread. His movements became uncoordinated as he desperately tried to move away from the focus of aggression. Each sting felt like a just punishment, a natural response to his invasion and his arrogance to think he could violate that space without consequences. That moment of vulnerability revealed a hidden truth. The force of nature knows no limits, and it reacts proportionately to the impact caused by those who try to challenge its limits. What followed was a scene of complete chaos. The man, now covered in stings, tried to run, but the burning and pain made him falter. His cries of pain echoed through the night as he staggered away, looking for a way out of that stinging hell. That instant, full of suffering and surprise, showed that life itself had decided to intervene, using its invisible backstage to restore balance. Without warning, nature has shown that it is a force that acts silently, but that it has a devastating impact when its laws are disregarded. The scene seemed like a living metaphor that often human actions carry consequences that only manifest at the exact moment, in the form of a revelation that dismantles the entire illusion of control. That man, who tried to steal with impunity, discovered that true strength is not in brute force or arrogance, but in the wisdom of life itself, which responds ruthlessly and fairly, even in the greatest vulnerability. From that moment on, everything turned into a desperate race for survival. The criminal, covered with stings, staggered along the road trying to hide from the impact he felt on every part of his body. His movements were uncoordinated, his breathing panting, and his mind probably taken by a mixture of pain and fear. At the same time, the silence of the night was replaced by their cries of pain, which echoed almost surreally. That episode revealed something that many ignore. The force of nature is a powerful ally in maintaining balance, a force that often acts quietly but never goes unnoticed. That moment of vulnerability of the criminal showed that even in the darkness, life always finds a way to manifest itself, either through an unexpected intervention or by the force of something as simple as stings of marimbondos. And it was precisely this strength that made all the difference. The impact of stings, in addition to causing physical pain, brought a profound lesson that every action has a reaction, that life always finds a way to balance itself, even in the most difficult moments. That fatal mistake of leaning against the trunk without imagining what could happen became a lesson that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, knows exactly when and how to act. There is no escaping the effect of our decisions, especially when they involve disrespecting the environment or defying its laws. That episode on the road was proof that true transformation often arises from chaos, from a natural reaction that shows us, clearly and directly, that the impact of our actions can come from where we least expect it. As I reflect on all this, it becomes clear that the vulnerability of a moment can be the opportunity for a revelation that changes everything. As a silent lesson, the force of nature acts as a mirror that shows us how small we are before the universe, but also how much we can learn from it. Every detail, every reaction, carries a message that the impact of our decisions is not something isolated or casual, but a fundamental piece in our transformation journey. When we believe that we are in control, we often forget that there is a force that operates behind the scenes, in the smallest details, readily capable of returning balance and teaching that respect for the laws of the natural world is essential. And more than that true strength lies in the understanding that everything is part of a larger cycle, where every mistake is an opportunity to learn, and every reaction, however unexpected, leads us to a new understanding of our own journey. In a matter of seconds, the silence of the night was completely broken by a barrage of stings that took over the scene in an overwhelming way. The swarm of marimbondos came out of hiding under the dry branches with ruthless force, like a rapidly spreading dark cloud, covering everything around. Hundreds of insects fell on the robber, who at that instant seemed to have become the main target of a natural force that had no mercy. Stings cut his face, arms and legs in a barrage of pain that seemed to have no end. The man, who until then had seemed so confident and determined, dropped the tool with his hands shaking with fear and pain, while his screams of dread echoed down the deserted road. The speed of the attack was absurd, a real storm of stings that caused him to lose control of everything around him. His movements became uncoordinated, as if the pain itself was pulling at every muscle, every fiber of his body, in a desperate struggle for survival. The intensity of the chaos was increasing by the second. The insects, moved by an instinctive force of defense, attacked with an almost savage ferocity, as if determined to make that moment an exemplary punishment. The man tried to move away, but the impact of the stings was almost unbearable. His arms, which had previously tried to protect his face, were now covered in red, inflamed marks as he tried to run, staggering down the road. The pain, added to the dread, created a sense of utter despair. The cry of pain mingled with the sounds of the night, forming a soundtrack of a brutal conflict between life and death. Every step he took felt like a struggle against his own pain, an attempt to escape from a natural punishment that manifested itself as a just punishment, a direct response to the impact of his actions. The moment felt like a movie scene, a narrative that clearly showed that the life force knows no limits when its space is invaded. The response of the marimbondos was relentless, a demonstration that nature, in its silent wisdom, reacts proportionately to the impact caused by those who defy its laws. The assailant, who had once been in control, now found himself overwhelmed by a barrage of stings that left him almost without strength. His movements became more and more frantic, almost desperate, as he tried to escape from that flood of pain that seemed not to want to stop. The scene turned into a race against time, where every second felt like an eternity, and pain became a constant companion, a brutal reminder that human arrogance has limits that life itself imposes with undeniable force. That moment of chaos also revealed a truth we often ignore. Life, at its purest essence, acts in ways that go beyond rational understanding. The strength of the marimbondos, who in seconds became the judges of that moment, showed that the impact of our actions reverberates in ways that we could not always predict. Arrogance, recklessness, disrespect for the environment or the laws that govern nature can trigger drastic reactions, which put us in front of a reality that we cannot control. And even if we try to run away or hide, the hidden truth is that life always finds a way to manifest itself, to play its role of balance, to punish when necessary, to teach through suffering. What became a scene of terror, a thwarted robbery attempt, became a lesson that the force that protects and challenges us is most often situated in the simplest and most invisible details. That man's pain, his despair, everything that seemed like a simple attempt to invade a space turned into a narrative of impact and revelation. Because deep down, this experience has shown that the hidden truth behind every event is often at the core of who we are and what we do. That our actions leave an invisible trail, a mark that can be activated by forces that we do not know, but that are always present in the dynamics of the natural world. And as that man desperately tried to shake off the punishment of the stings, one thing was clear. Life, in its quiet wisdom, doesn't let anything go blank, and the impact of a single decision can set off a chain of events that change everything in ways we can't even imagine. That moment of chaos, pain, and surprise is a living reminder that the universe is a network of causes and effects, where every action, no matter how small, has the potential to generate a profound and revealing transformation. While the chaos of the marimbondos hit that desperate figure hard, the driver, until then paralyzed by fear and surprise, realized that this moment of vulnerability was an opportunity that he could not pass up. The pain and confusion had created a smokescreen in his mind, but the experience of almost losing everything, his safety, his car, his peace of mind, gave him a sudden clarity. He knew that there time seemed to have slowed down, and that the chance of escaping unseen or hit by the natural onslaught was real. With his heart still racing, he moved slowly, trying to remain calm while observing the scene around him. That moment of mindfulness was a window of opportunity, an instant of decision that could change everything. He understood that even in the greatest vulnerability, there is a silent force that gives us the chance to act intelligently, to recognize the exact moment of escape, or to act wisely. Taking advantage of the panic of the criminal, who was struggling in a disorderly manner, the driver began to move away with quick but careful steps. That was the moment to break free from the bonds of fear, to turn insecurity into an escape strategy. Every step he took was a silent victory, a demonstration that presence of mind and connection to the present moment can be decisive. He knew that even with the pain, the fright, and the confusion, the only thing that mattered was his safety. The adrenaline was still pumping strong, but the clarity that this was a unique moment of transformation propelled him to move forward without looking back. That instant of decision was like a bridge that took him to a space of greater control, from a new perspective of himself. As he walked away, the criminal's face still writhed in pain and frustration, desperately trying to get rid of the stings and insect attack. That man, who minutes before had seemed so confident, had now had his world turned upside down, dominated by a force he could not understand or control. And it was at that moment that the driver realized that the life force, the one we often do not know, was by his side, acting in his defense in a way that only nature can do. A force that does not require weapons or violence, but that manifests itself in its purest essence, in the silent wisdom of those who understand that each action generates a reaction, that each impact has its moment to show itself. And in that instant, your decision to act with care and attention was your greatest weapon, your greatest strength to escape from a situation that could have been tragic. He then ran for a few yards, seeking a safe place, while gazing from afar at the scene of natural destruction unfolding. The criminal's cries of pain still echoed in the night, but now they seemed more distant, like a reminder that life has its limits, that arrogance and recklessness only lead to collapse. And there, on that lonely road, the driver felt a mixture of relief and gratitude. Gratitude for being alive, for realizing that even in the face of danger, the very force of life acts invisibly, often in the form of a lesson, an opportunity for transformation. That episode, which seemed like a simple episode of danger, had become a real lesson in how intelligence, respect, and connection to the moment can save lives, including our own. I knew it was a moment that carried a powerful message, that in life, there is always a chance to start over, to seize the opportunity that comes at the most unexpected moment. Even when everything seems to fall apart, there is an inner strength capable of giving us the necessary impulse to move forward, to flee from the impact and reach safety. That instant of escape was not just a matter of speed or luck, but of a deep understanding that often the universe gives us the chance to make the right choice, to use our emotional intelligence and our perceptions to escape a danger. Life, with its silent revelations, teaches that the negative impact can be reversed if we know how to perceive the right moment to act. And as he pulled away, the driver knew that this had been one of those transformational moments where the force of nature, coupled with his attention, had made all the difference. At that moment, he looked back for a moment, seeing the figure of the criminal still struggling, covered with stings, in a futile struggle against the force he had awakened himself. The pain and panic were evident, but the biggest lesson of that night had been that life always offers a way out, a space for hope, an opportunity for a fresh start. The connection to the present moment, the wisdom to seize the chance to escape, had become his greatest weapon. He knew that even in the face of such a severe impact, the force of his own decision had allowed him to get out of there alive and without serious injury. That episode reinforced a hidden truth. That transformation often happens at the right time, at the crossroads between fear and hope, between danger and opportunity. And that by recognizing this moment, we can change the course of our history, leaving behind the shadows of the past and moving towards a new, more conscious and stronger phase. Now, as we reflect on all of that, it becomes clear that the impact of one decision, no matter how simple it may seem, has the power to transform our entire journey. The life force which manifests itself behind the scenes always offers a chance to start over, to recover, to reinvent itself. And even in the greatest vulnerability, there is an opportunity to connect with this invisible force, to realize that true transformation happens when we open our eyes to the revelations that come from within. Every moment of impact, no matter how dramatic, carries a lesson that the universe works in silence, helping those who are attentive and willing to act intelligently. That episode on the road left a deep mark on the soul of those who lived through it, a reminder that life always offers a way out, a chance to renew hope, to realize that even in the greatest pain, there is an opportunity for transformation, for growth, and that by understanding this hidden truth, we can strengthen ourselves for the challenges yet to come, knowing that our decisions shape not only the present, but our entire journey toward what we are truly capable of achieving. A short time later, the silence that once dominated the road was broken by a group of drivers who were passing by and, upon noticing the scene, stopped in fright. From the midst of the darkness, a staggering figure emerged, covered with stings, with a face marked with red marks, eyes wide with pain, and a behavior clearly of despair. What seemed like a simple, almost banal theft attempt had turned into an inevitable punishment, a lesson that life itself, in its quiet wisdom, had imposed without warning. Those who passed by at that moment were shocked to see the situation of this man, who was now completely vulnerable, crying out for help. The scene seemed a clear symbol that the impact of actions is often greater than we can imagine, and that natural justice never fails to act, even if quietly, between the lines of our journey. He who minutes before had the confidence that everything would work out, now found himself in a situation of humiliation and pain, completely dominated by a force that he could not control. The stings, which still insisted on taking effect, seemed like a just punishment, as if nature itself was showing that there are limits that cannot be crossed. The scene carried a powerful message. Life has its own balancing mechanisms, and they work silently, often invisibly, but always efficiently. There was nothing of revenge or punishment planned, only a response proportionate to the impact caused by a person who tried to defy these laws. That man, once in control, was now a living example that every action provokes a reaction, and that the life force itself acts wisely, even when all seems lost. The impact of that moment wasn't just limited to the stings and physical marks. The scene became a metaphor that on the journey, everything we do leaves an imprint, a memory that can be both learning and consequence. When we try to override natural laws or act irresponsibly, we have to be aware that the universe has its own ways of responding, often quickly and ruthlessly. Natural justice, which often goes unnoticed, functions as a mirror that reflects our attitudes and reveals the hidden truth behind appearances. Just like that thief, who thought that the crime would be easy and that he could get away with it, he discovered that true strength lies in harmony with the world around us, in the understanding that our actions have a direct impact on our own history. It was a scene of deep reflection, which left a mark on those who passed by and who carried that image of a man in a pitiful state, covered with stings, begging for help. That episode left a lesson that echoes to this day. Natural justice does not require evidence, nor formal judgment. It acts on the essence of those who challenge the balance of life, teaching that the impact of our decisions reverberates in our own journey. And that often the best we can do is learn to respect these invisible backstage, which keep the cycle of transformation in constant motion. Because deep down, this story shows that true justice is not only in law or punishment, but in the deep understanding that everything in life happens at its own pace, at the right time, and that the consequence of our actions always finds its way back. Thus, nature reveals itself as a silent ally, which maintains balance and reinforces that, even in vulnerability, there is room for transformation, for renewal, and for the hidden truth that, in the great cycle of life, everything inevitably falls into place. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this story of the road, the thief, and the marimbondos reveals a hidden truth that we often forget in the rush of everyday life, that our actions, however minor or more impulsive, carry an impact that we cannot foresee. The transformation that happens there in that instant of pain and surprise is a reminder that the universe has its own mechanisms of balance and that they work silently but surely. He who tries to circumvent the laws of nature, who defies the order of things without understanding that there are limits to everything, ends up facing a reality that he cannot control. And this revelation, as harsh as it sounds, is also an opportunity for us to reflect on our own journey. Because in essence, everything we do has a consequence, and many of those consequences only show themselves when it's too late to back down or change. Life, with its silent wisdom, acts behind the scenes, often in the form of small messages, of invisible signals that we only notice when we are attentive. And these signs, which can come in the form of an unexpected grief, a sudden loss, or a situation that seems simple, carry a fundamental truth, that the impact of our decisions shapes our destiny. When a person acts arrogantly, with contempt for the natural laws or the limits of the other, he ends up creating a chain of events that sooner or later will manifest itself in a forceful way. This is the essence of transformation, to understand that life is not a sum of chance but a complex web of causes and effects, where each gesture reverberates in ways that we cannot always imagine. And realizing this, we begin to view our own actions more carefully, with more responsibility, knowing that everything we plant, inevitably, we will reap. More than a simple story of a thwarted robbery, this narrative invites us to reflect on our daily decisions. Every choice we make, every attitude we take, has the potential to alter our entire trajectory. Often, a small disrespect for the environment, a misplaced word, a thoughtless attitude, can trigger a reaction that will change the course of our lives in a definitive way. It is as if we are always at a point of delicate balance, where the life force, through its revelations, shows us that the impact of our actions is a kind of mirror that reflects our own choices. So what seems like a simple momentary consequence may actually be a lesson we carry forever. And by understanding this dynamic, we realize that the universe does not act randomly. He has a wisdom of his own, a logic that is often hidden behind appearances. Just like marimbondos, who seem small and insignificant, but who have a ruthless force when provoked, our actions can also trigger reactions that change everything. That episode on the road reveals to us that natural justice is not a distant concept, but a present force which acts silently and in proportion to the impact caused. When we act irresponsibly or arrogantly, we may think that we have escaped the consequences, but the hidden truth is that everything comes back somehow, often in a way that we cannot foresee. Therefore, this story is not just a narrative of an isolated episode, but a reflection on our own journey of self-knowledge. It shows us that along the way, we have the opportunity to learn from the unseen behind the scenes of the universe, who work silently to teach us that the impact of our actions is a truth we can never ignore. Every decision, every attitude, carries a force that sooner or later manifests itself in one way or another, shaping our destiny. And by realizing this, we can begin to act more consciously, knowing that true transformation comes from within, and that it reveals itself precisely in the moments when we least expect it. Because deep down, Everything in life is a matter of understanding that the most valuable revelations are hidden in the simplest details, and that the connection with these truths helps us to evolve, to create a new mindset, more in line with the wisdom of the natural world. Comment there, "This makes sense to me," or write a word that represents your perception of this story. This way, each of us can reflect on how impact and decisions shape our journey in a way that we often can't see right away, but that, deep down, is what leads us to a more true and lasting transformation. If you made it this far, I think this story touched you in some way and brought an important reflection on our choices and the impact they have on our path. These lessons that life presents us often come in simple, silent forms, but which carry an enormous learning force. I believe that by observing these details, we can become more attentive to our own actions, understanding that everything we do, no matter how small, leaves a mark that influences our journey. So if this message made sense to you, you are invited to subscribe to the channel. Here we always seek to share stories and reflections that help us see the world in a more conscious way and connected with natural wisdom. Leave a comment saying that "I'm with you until the end," or share what this story has awakened in you. Thus, we can exchange experiences and strengthen this learning connection. Oh, and if you want to continue reflecting, there is a video here on the side that complements this subject. Click and continue with me there. I promise that each content is designed to help us see things more easily and understandably, always in a way that makes sense in our routine. Hope to see you there. See you again.